been so many years. Why hasn't this case been solved?
Well, if you were to ask me, I would say it is solved. I would say that it's solved but unprosecuted.
The murder of Biggie Smalls was not a mystery. It was a cover-up. For over 25 years, the story we were told was about a simple rap rivalry. But the real truth is so much darker. The real killers were not just gang members. They were people who wore a badge. And the city of Los Angeles tried to bury the evidence and the detective who found it. The end of a king. It all ended on March 9th, 1997. But the night started as a celebration. Biggie Smalls, whose real name was Christopher Wallace, was in Los Angeles. He was 24 years old and on top of the world. He was there to promote his new album. That album was called Life After Death. Just the night before, he had presented an award to Toni Braxton at the Soul Train Music Awards. When he walked on stage, he was booed by some people in the crowd. The feud between the East Coast and West Coast rap scenes was real, and it was dangerous. Biggie had even said in a radio interview that he hired extra security. He feared for his safety. On the night of March 8th, he went to a huge after-party. It was hosted by Vibe magazine and Quest Records. The party was at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. The building was packed with over 1,000 guests. Stars were everywhere. Biggie's wife, Faith Evans, was there. Queen Latifah was there. Aaliyah was there. The party was loud. The music was shaking the walls. But just after midnight, the music stopped. The Los Angeles Fire Department came and shut the party down. They said it was because of overcrowding and loud music. At 12:30 a.m., Biggie left the party. He left with his entourage in two green 1997 Chevrolet Suburbans. Biggie was not driving. He was in the front passenger seat of the first truck. His friend Lil Cease was with him. His boss, Puffy Combs, was in the second car, right behind him. They were all heading to another party in the Hollywood Hills. They never made it. They only got 50 yards from the museum. They stopped at a red light at the corner of Wilshire Boulevard and South Fairfax Avenue. It was 12:45 a.m. While they were waiting, a dark-colored car pulled up next to Biggie's truck. It was a Chevrolet Impala SS, a 1994 to 1996 model. The driver of the Impala was a black male. Witnesses saw him clearly. He was dressed in a very strange way for a drive-by shooter. He was wearing a light blue suit and a bow tie. The man in the bow tie lowered his window. He drew a 9mm pistol, and he fired 6 shots into the green Suburban. Biggie was hit 4 times. The bullets tore through his body. One of the shots was fatal. It went through his right hip and hit his colon, his liver, his heart, and his left lung. Biggie's friends were screaming. They grabbed him and rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Doctors tried everything. They performed an emergency thoracotomy, a last-ditch effort to save him. But it was too late. At 1:15 a.m., Christopher Wallace was pronounced dead. The world was in shock. But for those who knew Biggie and for those who knew what happened 6 months earlier, this was not a shock. It was an execution. To understand why, you have to know what happened to his best friend, the brother he lost. Before the feud, before the war, there was a friendship. Christopher Wallace was born in Brooklyn, New York. He was the only child of Jamaican parents. His father, George Latorre, left when he was just 2 years old. His mother, Voletta Wallace, worked 2 jobs to raise him. She sent him to a private school, Queen of All Saints Middle School. He was a smart kid. He excelled in his classes. He even won several awards in his English class for his writing. But he grew up around the streets of Clinton Hill and Bedford-Stuyvesant. He saw the dealing and the crime. He was nicknamed Big because of his size. By 17, he had dropped out of high school. He started rapping, and he was good. But he was unknown. At the same time, Tupac Shakur was already a huge star. In 1993, Biggie was in Los Angeles and asked a dealer to introduce him to Tupac. Tupac invited Biggie and his crew to his house. What happened next shows what their friendship was really like. A friend who was there said Tupac went into his kitchen. He started cooking for them. He made them steaks, French fries, and Kool-Aid. They sat there eating, drinking, and laughing. That is where their friendship started. They became close. They were like brothers. When Biggie was in California, he would crash on Tupac's couch. When Tupac was in New York, he would stop by Biggie's neighborhood and hang out. They even performed together. They got on stage at the 1993 Budweiser Superfest at Madison Square Garden and freestyled together. Biggie looked up to Tupac. He saw him as a mentor. Biggie even asked Tupac to be his manager, but Tupac said no. He told Biggie something that would change history. He said, "Stay with Puff. He will make you a star." Tupac trusted Puffy to take care of his friend. That trust would be shattered. It would be destroyed in the lobby of a building in New York City, and it would be the real beginning of the end. The ambush that started a war. The date was November 30th, 1994. Tupac was in New York. He was invited to Quad Recording Studios in Times Square. He was supposed to record a song for another rapper. He was told he would be paid in cash. Tupac arrived in the lobby. That's when he was ambushed. Two men in army fatigues held him at gunpoint. They demanded his heavy gold jewelry. Tupac resisted. He tried to pull his own gun. That's when the shooting started. He was shot 5 times. He was hit in the groin, the head, and his hand. They stole his jewelry and left him for dead. But Tupac did not die. Bleeding, he dragged himself into the elevator. He went upstairs to the studio. And who was there, waiting in the studio? Biggie and Puffy. Tupac, bleeding from 5 gunshot wounds, looked at them. He would later say they looked surprised and guilty. Puffy and Biggie always claimed they were shocked. They said they showed him nothing but love and concern. Tupac never believed them. He was convinced it was a setup. He believed they knew he was going to be robbed, and they did nothing to warn him. This was the betrayal. But what came next was the insult. Soon after, Tupac was sent to prison on an unrelated charge. He was at his lowest point. He was locked up, angry, and paranoid. And that is when Biggie released a new song. The song was called Who Shot Ya? Tupac heard the song from his prison cell. He was sure it was Biggie mocking him. To Tupac, this was proof. The friendship was over. The man he mentored, the man he cooked for, had betrayed him. This was the point of no return. The friendship was dead. It was replaced by hate. And that hate would lead Tupac right into the arms of the most dangerous man in music, a man named Suge Knight. The first body falls. Suge Knight was the CEO of Death Row Records. He was Tupac's new protector. He paid Tupac's bail. He got him out of prison. In return, Tupac signed to Death Row. The war was now official. It was East Coast versus West Coast, Bad Boy Records versus Death Row Records. And it all came to a head on September 7th, 1996. Tupac and Suge Knight were in Las Vegas. They were at the MGM Grand Hotel for the Mike Tyson boxing match. They watched Tyson win in just 109 seconds. After the fight, they were walking through the hotel lobby. A member of Tupac's crew spotted someone. His name was Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. Anderson was a member of the Southside Crips, a rival gang. He had allegedly tried to rob a Death Row member earlier. Tupac, furious, walked right up to him. Hotel security cameras recorded everything. Tupac asked him, "You from the South?" Before Anderson could answer, Tupac punched him in the head, knocking him to the ground. Then Suge Knight and the entire Death Row entourage joined in. They stomped and kicked Anderson on the lobby floor. Security broke it up. Tupac and Suge left. They got into Suge's black BMW sedan to go to a club. A few hours later, they were stopped at a red light. A white Cadillac pulled up next to them. A gunman from the back seat opened fire. Tupac was shot 4 times. He was rushed to the hospital. He fought for 6 days. But on September 13, 1996, Tupac Shakur died. The shooter was long believed to be Orlando Anderson. It was retaliation. He was beaten by Tupac, so he came back and killed him. The king of the West Coast was dead. His army, Death Row Records, and his general, Suge Knight, were wounded and angry. They wanted revenge. 6 months later, the king of the East Coast, Biggie Smalls, made a fatal mistake. He came to Los Angeles. And this is where the mystery finally begins to unravel. The detective who found the truth. We are back in March 1997. Biggie Smalls is dead. The Los Angeles Police Department has a huge case on its hands, but the case was a mess from the start. It was first given to the local Wilshire division, not the city's top detectives. Eventually, the case landed on the desk of a man named Detective Russell Poole. To understand what happened next, you have to understand who Russell Poole was. He was not just some cop. He was a 19-year veteran of the LAPD. He was the son of a 27-year LA County sheriff. Poole was a legend. He was highly respected and highly decorated. He was a real homicide detective. He was the main investigator on 135 homicide cases and helped on 500 more. He solved the big ones. He investigated the tragic murder of Bill Cosby's son, Ennis Cosby. He worked the famous North Hollywood shootout, where bank robbers in full body armor shot at police with machine guns. That case happened just days before Biggie was killed. Russell Poole was the real deal, but he did not get the Biggie Smalls case at first. He got a different case, a case that seemed totally unrelated. The case was a road rage shooting. It happened on March 18, 1997, just 9 days after Biggie was murdered. An undercover white cop named Frank Liga shot and killed a plainclothes black cop named Kevin Gaines. It was a cop-on-cop shooting, and it was a huge scandal. Russell Poole was assigned to investigate it. It seemed like a tragic but separate case, a road rage incident. But Russell Poole was about to pull on a thread that would unravel the entire Los Angeles Police Department, and it would lead him straight to Biggie Smalls' killer, the worst connection. This is where the story gets dark. This is the truth that is worse than anyone thought. Detective Poole started investigating the cop who was shot, Kevin Gaines, and right away, things did not add up. Kevin Gaines was living a life that no cop could afford. He was driving a luxury Mercedes-Benz. He wore expensive designer suits. In his apartment, Poole found a receipt for a $952 dinner at a fancy steakhouse. Where was a cop getting this kind of money? Poole dug deeper. He found that Officer Kevin Gaines was living with Suge Knight's ex-wife, Sharitha. And then Poole found the connection. Gaines was part of a crew of corrupt cops. These cops were inside the LAPD's elite anti-gang unit called Crash. Poole discovered that these police officers were secretly working a second job. They were working for Suge Knight and Death Row Records. Poole identified the core of the crew. It was Officer Kevin Gaines, it was Officer David Mack, and it was Officer Rafael Perez. What were they doing? They were off-duty security for Death Row, but it was more than that. They were advising Death Row gang members on police tactics, teaching them how to avoid arrest. They were acting as lookouts for drug deals. Poole realized the line between the LAPD and Death Row Records was gone. In some cases, they were the same people. This was the beginning of the massive Rampart scandal, one of the biggest police corruption scandals in U.S. history. And right in the middle of this investigation, as Poole was uncovering this nest of dirty cops, he got a phone call. It was from the detectives working the Biggie Smalls murder. They told him a tip had come in. They believed a police officer might be involved in Biggie's murder. The officer's name? David Mack. The two separate cases, the road rage shooting and the Biggie Smalls murder, just crashed together. And now, Russell Poole was the only one who saw the connection. He was about to build a case so terrifying, it would end his career. A cop's car, a cop's bullets. Russell Poole focused on Officer David Mack. Who was this cop? He was an LAPD officer, but he was also a member of the Bloods gang. He grew up in Compton. He knew Suge Knight. Poole's investigation was just starting when David Mack did something that got him arrested. Months after Biggie's murder, Officer Mack walked into a Bank of America and robbed it. He stole $722,000. Mack was arrested for bank robbery. This gave Poole and other investigators a chance to look deeper. And what they found was shocking. Poole started connecting the dots. He put together a series of clues. Clue number 1, the car. What car did the killer drive on the night of Biggie's murder? Witnesses said it was a dark-colored 1994-1996 Chevrolet Impala SS. Poole checked the records. What car did Officer David Mack own? He owned a custom, all-black 1995 Impala SS. It was the exact same car. Clue number 2, the bullets. When police searched David Mack's house after the bank robbery, they found two very strange things. First, they found what they called a shrine dedicated to Tupac Shakur. Second, they found a huge stash of ammunition. It was thousands of rounds of a very rare, special kind of bullet. They were German-made Gecko 9mm bullets. This was not standard issue ammo. It was very hard to find. Poole checked the ballistics report from Biggie's murder. What kind of bullets killed Biggie Smalls? The exact same rare German-made Gecko 9mm bullets. Clue number 3, the shooter. Poole did not think Mack pulled the trigger. He was the planner. Poole believed the shooter was Mack's friend, a man named Amir Muhammad. Why? Because Amir Muhammad, who was also known as Harry Billups, perfectly matched the composite sketch of the shooter. And what was Amir Muhammad's signature look? He was known to wear a suit and a bow tie, just like the man at the red light. Clue number 4, the inside man. This was the final piece, the one that tied it all together. An inmate came forward. He was in jail with Mack's dirty partner, Officer Rafael Perez. The inmate told investigators that Perez had confessed to him. Perez told him everything about the night of Biggie's murder. Perez said that he and David Mack were both at the Peterson Automotive Museum party that night. They were not. There as guests, they were working as security for Death Row Records. Perez said he was the one who saw Biggie leaving the party. He said he got on his cell phone and called David Mack. He told Mack that Biggie was in his truck. He told him he was leaving. He told him where he was. This was the signal. This was the setup. An active-duty LAPD officer working for Suge Knight had given the green light for the execution of Biggie Smalls. Russell Poole had it all. The motive, revenge for Tupac. The planner, Officer David Mack. The car, Mack's black Impala. The bullets, Mack's rare ammo. The shooter, the bow tie wearing Amir Muhammad. And the inside man, Officer Rafael Perez. He had solved the case. He was about to be a hero. Or so he thought. The great cover-up. Russell Poole took this mountain of evidence to his superiors. He went all the way to the LAPD chief. He told them everything. He told them he believed David Mack and other officers were involved in a conspiracy to murder Biggie Smalls. He thought he had just cracked the biggest murder case in the country. But the LAPD did not celebrate. They did not make arrests. They did the opposite. They shut him down. What the LAPD did next is the real crime. Cover-up number 1. The LAPD refused to do a forensic examination of David Mack's Black Impala. They would not test the car to see if it was the one at the crime scene. They would not test it for gunpowder residue. They just did not do it. Cover-up number 2. The LAPD failed to investigate Mack's stash of rare gecko bullets. They had the murder weapon's fingerprint, and they ignored it. Cover-up number 3. They took Russell Poole's detailed reports and edited them. They removed all the evidence that connected David Mack and death row to the murder. They said his evidence was not real. They said it was just conjectural. Cover-up number 4. They took Poole off the case. They kicked him out of the elite robbery homicide division. Cover-up number 5. They buried the truth. They hid the inmate's confession about Rafael Perez. They hid it from Biggie's family and from their lawyers. Russell Poole, the hero detective, was destroyed. He was being told by his own department to stop investigating. He was being told to let it go. He could not. In 1999, Russell Poole resigned from the LAPD. He gave up his 19-year career. He gave up his pension. He quit because he was being blocked from finding the truth. But why? Why would the LAPD do this? Why would they protect a cop who helped murder someone? The Wallace family's lawyer had an answer: money. If it was proven that active-duty LAPD officers were involved in the murder of Christopher Wallace, the city of Los Angeles would be in huge trouble. They would be liable for hundreds of millions of dollars. The LAPD had a choice: expose the rot in their own department or bury the truth about Biggie's murder. They chose to bury the truth, but the case would not stay buried forever. Years later, the city was still facing lawsuits from Biggie's family. They had to find an answer, a different answer. So they assigned a new detective to find one. The official story years went by. In 2006, the LAPD reopened the case. They had to. Biggie's family had filed a $400 million wrongful death lawsuit against the city. This time, they put a new detective in charge. His name was Greg Ketting. Ketting's job was to find the truth, and he found a very different and much cleaner solution. Ketting did not find a conspiracy inside the LAPD. He found a simpler story. He got a confession, not from a cop, but from a Crip gang member named Dwayne Keffy D. Davis. Here is Ketting's theory. It is the one you might have heard. Suge Knight was furious that Tupac was killed. He wanted revenge. So he paid a member of the mob, Piru Bloods gang, to kill Biggie Smalls. The price was $13,000. The man Suge allegedly hired was a gang member named Wardell Poochie Faust. The key witness was the mother of one of Suge Knight's children. This story is simple. It is clean. It is gang-on-gang retaliation. But what is missing from this story? There are no corrupt cops. There is no David Mack. There is no Rafael Perez. There is no LAPD involvement at all. There is no conspiracy. There is no massive multi-million-dollar lawsuit for the city to worry about. And the most convenient part of all, the new alleged killer, Poochie Faust, could not deny it. He was killed in an unrelated shooting in 2003. He is dead. He cannot talk. The case is tied up in a neat little bow. So, who do you believe? Do you believe the new, official story? The one that cleans everything up and protects the police? Or do you believe Russell Poole, the detective who was there in 1997, the man who found a cop's car, a cop's bullets, and a confession from another cop, the man who had his career destroyed for trying to tell the truth, the unsolved truth? To this day, the murder of the notorious B.I.G. is officially unsolved. Russell Poole never gave up. He died on August 19, 2015. He was at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department meeting with detectives. He was still talking about the Biggie case when he suffered a heart attack and collapsed. He died fighting for this case. The case is not unsolved because of a lack of evidence. It may be unsolved because the evidence points to a truth so dark and so worse than anyone thought that the system decided it was better to let a king's killer walk free than to expose its own.